Hello, my name is Hayden Wayne. This is the Healing Channel, episode 13. I will be reading In the Street Between Wormholes, episode 2. The need to reverse our devolution. Eye-to-eye contact creates empathy, which increases serotonin, versus the virtual connection to cellular devices, which increases dopamine, leading to the decline of neurons and subsequently unhappiness. Low serotonin levels can create anxiety and depression. Facebook calling itself the cutting edge of connectivity is, in fact, an oxymoron. It has created a billion-plus ocean of unempathetic, disconnected, lost souls, deluding themselves to be connected, yet further away from each other emotionally than believe they are. Interpersonal connection creates contentment through the joining with each other through eye contact, smell, body language, the manner in which we speak, our tone, our choice of words, thus creating a serotonin rise. High tryptophan, an amino acid, which is a building block to make serotonin, is mostly found in fish and flax. Omega-3 fatty acids found in fish and algae provide stability to the neural membranes, thus giving the neuron a better chance to survive, giving them a better elasticity to recover from stress. Sugar drives dopamine up and serotonin down. When I was a young teenager and fast food appeared, it was an adjective for the delivery system. It now describes a particular type of food that has ruinous effects on our bodies as well as our emotional well-being. Eating processed foods is the leading reason for chronic metabolic diseases such as type 2 diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, high cholesterol, cardiovascular, cancer, and dementia. We now spend 75% of our healthcare expenditures to cure these diseases. Simply put, there are not enough practitioners or institutions to handle the volume of people who have physically ruined their bodies and minds because of the garbage they insist on eating. Life expectancy is going down in our country. Diet is responsible. Sugar is toxic. 69% of Americans are overweight. Things to be done. Get rid of food subsidies. After the Great Depression and World War II, they are no longer necessary. The biggest subsidies go to corn, soy, and sugar, the three things that can kill us. Monoagriculture has to end. When cattle and all kinds of agriculture coexisted, antibiotics were not needed to keep the cattle healthy, as well as spraying petroleum products on agriculture to make them grow without pestilence. Type 2 diabetes is processed food disease. Get rid of all sugared beverages from hospitals, schools, places of business, the same way tobacco has been banned. Unless we turn chronic diseases around, Medicare will go broke by 2026. Presently, the food industry garnishes itself $1.6 trillion a year, of which 45% is gross profit, compared to healthcare expenditures, $3.2 trillion a year, of which 75% is for trying to cure metabolic diseases, of which 75% of that is preventable if we change our diet. In other words, $1.8 trillion is wasted. We lose triple compared to what the food industry makes. As of December 6, 2016, the U.S. healthcare spending had grown 5.8% in 2015, reaching $3.2 trillion, or $9,990 per person. As a share of the nation's gross domestic product, health spending accounted for 17.8%. So, all of us who want to lower and hopefully eradicate our truly self-destructive national debt, which continues to explode before our eyes, for all of us who want to be covered by health care as a human right, for all of us who want to be guaranteed an education and the continual upgrading of our infrastructure, if we go after the food industry, which is hell-bent on destroying our lives because of profit, suddenly huge amounts of money present themselves to fulfill the aforementioned desires. The results are a society that will be healthy, educated, a corporate system with lower taxes to become more competitive, a country of greater minds to become inventors and entrepreneurs, and as a result, as a society as a whole, much more happy about our individual lives because of all the promise of better well-being. There is the pursuit of happiness, when there should also be recognized the happiness of pursuit, greater profits of well-being under the auspices of the common good. Consciousness is the greatest mystery in science, and lack of it the greatest failure of man. Compassionately enjoy the mystery of life. 100 trillion cells within us, 25 trillion red blood cells that die every 4 months. And every second our body is making 2 to 3 million new blood cells. Samsara, death and renewal. And all the while, we can grow the neuroplasticity of our brains. When one devolves to the point of being Pavlovian, responding only to the bell of winning, no matter what the cost, where any consciousness of morality never enters rationality, you have such a devolved state that will only lead to not only self-destruction of the individual, but destruction of the world in which she roams. Afraid? The only thing to be afraid of is mediocrity. Don't let the demons get you. Stay enlightened. We are the mirror of each other's eyes. Blind loyalty without taking personal responsibility for your own actions is the surest way to ruin and damnation. If you don't know where you are, look for the sun. If you don't know who you are, listen to your heart. If you don't know why you are, find your purpose. If you don't know how you came to be, study your origins. If you don't know when, look to the stars and realize you have always been. I recognize the fragility to be one with time, static in its totality, yet constantly moving within. I open my breast humble before you, allowed the opportunity to reach for perpetual regeneration. Why should we assume we are not instruments that have resonance, have to be nurtured, tuned, refined in our craft of self-evolution, perpetuated in our lifelong pilgrimage, learning always, turning ourselves towards the greater good, the light of wisdom, seamless and one within the totality of totality. When I'm composing, I am summoning all that is possible within each thought, building the muscle between my ears. This curiosity we call life, obviously too short for some, or precisely ordained for those of us in love with this precious moment, seamless perfection, regardless of imposed doubts plaguing the soul, crushing our potential lightness, when in rapture within fulfillment, the unique way we specifically choose to chase our dreams. My infant son carried on my body, always faced forward, the prow of my ship riding into the cosmos, wrapped in splendiferous astral dust, while tucked between ribbons of solar breezes. Memories are possessions, thus material wealth is subjective, being in the moment, a life of riches, lean and hungry, to be of unbearable lightness of being, while present and improvising craft development, getting out of my own way. It has taken me all of my life to get to this point in time. My core center is love. my strength as demonstrated by my parents' devotion to each other and to me. My mother's continuing uplifting of my spirit, pointing me towards the unknown and what I was capable of first creating beyond my present realm of comprehension. My father giving me my purpose as well as being a peacemaker, never turning from his responsibilities to his family. My mother's discipline to maximize the tools we had at hand and their lessons how to make things last beyond the projected life expectancy by bringing a synergy to everything and everyone they engaged with. We were the three musketeers. And, as my father would repeatedly say throughout our lives, if you can't come to us, who can you go to? We were a showbiz family, a household of love, respect, and humor. Everything was possible, insulated so. Innocence still is in my upload. This strength bequeathed to me has fortified me so. This microcosm was to ultimately become my macro view of all around me, as intensely as I am in this continual process of consciousness and weightlessness. There are no secrets other than the self. At what point and how much of ourselves do we reveal in order to coexist? The struggle is everything. Goals achieved would be rendered meaningless without the difficulties to achieve them. If you don't perpetually question, you will inevitably fall into mediocrity, if not worse, chaos. It is this very struggle that is life itself. As long as we procrastinate, we will never get from under the dark cloud of what must be done. How well you connect is how well you connect. Being aware is everything. Consciousness spilling into pools, coalescing into oceans, unified, synergistic, one. With all this talk of walls, it seems we have dedicated our lives through a philosophy that rewards breakthrough, overcoming obstacles, etc. These barriers, these walls to break, separate those who can, who do, from those who cannot. Pound on that wall until it breaks. Subjectively, survival of the fittest is the mantle awarded those who succeed. However, in a more evolved state of consciousness, why have to break through when one can go around, or in an even more evolved state, have no barrier in the first place? Everything is possible within the totality of totality. As long as we never forget, it never leaves us. The spirit, unencumbered, timeless, forever. Think of it. When a clock stops It tells the correct time twice a day. If everything stops, no matter what time it is, it's the same time. Static perfection, this endless moment. When I went to school, public education was, without question, the envy of the world. The United States is now rated 23rd. What happened? A conscious destruction of our children's future, so to not be able to critically think, let alone collectively critically think, which is the only guarantee of democracy. Our children are no longer taught cursive writing skills and are rapidly proving themselves illiterate, ultimately not being able to read, let alone even know that our precious Constitution, arguably one of the most important documents on human rights, exists. July 3rd, 2017. In a PBS NewsHour, NPR Marist poll taken about who we won independence from, only 77% correctly said Great Britain. 15% were unsure, and 8% mentioned other countries, including Russia and Afghanistan. Only 77% knew we as colonies declared independence in 1776. An excerpt from the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, envisions a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Thomas Jefferson. How absurdly disparate and incongruous this most enlightened document is to its creator. Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner. And years after his wife's death was the father of 6 children with Sally Hemings, a Monticello slave mentioned in Jefferson's records, including her children Beverly, Harriet, Madison, and Eston Hemings. The other two had died in infancy. These children were raised as slaves and trained as artisans, but were subsequently granted their freedom by Jefferson. Sally remained a slave in the household until Jefferson's death. The last 9 years of her life, she lived freely in a house her sons owned in Charlottesville and was witness to the birth of a grandchild. It is quite apparent, as obtuse as this declaration is to the lifestyle of its author, who composed it for his fellow white male landowners. Nonetheless, it proved an intellectual exercise created by a genius who took the ephemeral idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and turned it into law. The preamble to the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. James Madison. Madison proposed the 3/5 compromise, which counted slaves as 3/5 of a person for the purposes of taxation and legislative representation. At his death, he still owned around 100 slaves. He freed none of them. Not even Paul Jennings, his lifelong valet. Obviously, this preamble to our Constitution, this declaration, were created by extraordinary minds, so finely honed above their unquestionable, incongruous lifestyles, which clearly demonstrated the antithesis to the intellectual exercise that created a legal document that addends itself, that through these 200 plus years of precedent demonstrated how much more concrete this law out of the ephemeral life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is. It doesn't matter their deplorable insensitivity, racism, and sexism. We are 200 years plus later and can't help them. They created their legacy, which we now view. But beyond them, what will be said about us? Will we, the people, change this nation for the better upon the strength of precedent through these documents and have the power to improve it ever the more? What is important here is that we never forget that we are the government, and as such can be as diligent or naively self-destructive as we choose. Flawed men of extreme literacy were able to entertain something so far beyond their own human shortcomings and turn it into law with the malleability to improve upon it. How evolved are we beyond our own shortcomings to demonstrate the intellectual wherewithal to improve and finally end what so offends us as individuals, finally unite us into the human race, accountable for all life and its sustainability, humble before nature, grateful for our inclusion, and able to perpetuate regeneration. Democracy is not a spectator sport. You have to participate. Governance is messy. Dialogue must be fluid and open, not parochial and self-righteous. We constantly hear cries of too large government by those themselves who choose to force their respective opinions onto others. It seems the escalation of individual opinions is the collective voice of the people, which is the government. If you don't want large governance, then have fewer people. You can't have it both ways. It isn't too large government that is broken and thus what disturbs us. It's that we are unwilling to compromise and civilly engage with each other, which is the process of governance. If anything, we need an amendment to create 8 super governors within the executive branch to deal with domestic policy below the president. North and South, Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific. Considering the disparate opinions that seem more regional, what better way to get things done within our country, which prides its strength on its diversity, while these differences also prove to be its Achilles heel when trying to govern